You remember the argument. Every word, every pause, every look on their face. That was 3 years ago. But yesterday's breakfast? Gone. The name of the person you met last Tuesday? Nowhere. Your brain is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. And the reason why is far stranger than you think. Memory is not a recording. It never was. For most of human history, scientists assumed the brain worked like a camera, capturing moments, storing them, replaying them on demand. That assumption was wrong. A neuroscientist studying memory formation found something that changed everything. When you recall a memory, you are not playing it back. You are rebuilding it from scratch every single time. Think about what that means. Every time you remember something, your brain reconstructs it using whatever pieces it still has, fills in the gaps with logic and emotion, and then stores that new version as if it were the original. The memory you have right now of your childhood home is not the home you grew up in. It is the last version of the memory you rebuilt, which was itself a rebuild of the version before that. You have never once remembered the original. This is called memory reconsolidation, and it explains almost everything strange about how your mind holds the past. Why does the argument still feel so vivid? Because every time you replay it, your brain rebuilds it with slightly more emotional weight. The anger gets sharper. The words get clearer. Not because that is what happened, but because your emotional state keeps amplifying the reconstruction. Pain makes memory stronger. That is not an accident. Your ancestors lived in a world where forgetting the wrong thing could kill you. Forget which plant made you sick, you eat it again. Forget the sound a predator made, you do not run in time. Forget the face of the person who betrayed you, you trust them again. The brain did not evolve to remember everything equally. It evolved to remember what hurt, what surprised you, what threatened you, what felt wrong. Pleasant moments were safe, painful ones were warnings, and warnings had to stick. Research into how the brain encodes emotional experiences revealed something precise. The brain has a small almond-shaped structure that acts like an alarm system. When something triggers a strong emotional response, fear, grief, humiliation, rage, this structure fires a chemical signal that tells the memory system, lock this one in. Do not let it fade. This event matters. The result is that your worst memories are your most detailed ones. Not because life was mostly bad, but because your brain invested more resources in preserving the things that felt dangerous. You are walking around with a highlight reel of your hardest moments, rendered in high definition, while the good days blur together into a warm haze you can barely describe. This is why people say trauma changes you. It does not just change how you feel. It changes what your brain treats as real and important. A single event, charged with enough fear or grief, can reshape the entire filter through which you see the world afterward. But here is where it gets even stranger. You can also forget things that definitely happened, not because your brain failed to record them, but because it decided they were not worth the cost of storing. Memory is expensive. It requires energy, space, and constant maintenance. Your brain is always making bets about what to keep and what to release. Routine, repetitive, emotionally neutral experiences get deprioritized. That is why you cannot remember most of your Tuesday afternoons from last year. Nothing signaled to your brain that they mattered. This is also why people who experience something deeply traumatic sometimes report remembering almost nothing at all. Not because the event was not encoded, but because the brain, overwhelmed, sometimes fragments the memory or buries it beneath layers of protective suppression. It is not weakness. It is a circuit breaker. The system trying to protect you from a signal too powerful to process all at once. Memory researchers have demonstrated that even confident, detailed memories can be entirely false. In one line of research, people were made to sincerely believe they had experienced events that never occurred. Childhood accidents, getting lost in a shopping center, encountering animals that simply were not there. The memories felt real. They had texture and emotion and detail, and they were completely fabricated. Your brain does not require truth. It requires a coherent story. This is the part that is hardest to accept. You do not remember your life. You narrate it. Your brain stitches together fragments. fills gaps with plausible guesses, and presents you with a story that feels like memory. And you believe it, because you have no way to know the difference. The argument you still replay at 2 a.m., parts of it are accurate. Parts of it are what your emotional state decided must have happened. You cannot tell which is which, and neither can the other person who was there. This is one of the reasons eyewitness accounts in legal cases have been found to be deeply unreliable. Two people can witness the same event and walk away with memories so different they seem to describe entirely separate moments. Not because one is lying, but because two different brains with two different emotional histories reconstructed two different versions of the same truth. Your memory is personal. It is not objective. But here is the quiet miracle buried inside all of this, because memory is reconstructed rather than replayed. It can also be changed, not erased, not fabricated wholesale in a harmful way, but gently reframed. When you revisit a painful memory in a safe context, with distance, with understanding, with a different emotional state, the reconstruction that gets stored afterward carries some of that new context with it. The memory does not disappear, but its emotional charge can, over time, slowly shift. This is the biological basis for why talking about painful things can help. Why time changes how old grief feels. Why the same event that once paralyzed you can eventually become something you carry more lightly. Your brain is not a vault. It is a living system, constantly updating its own records based on who you are right now. The memory you have tomorrow of this moment will not be the memory you have today. It will be a new version, shaped by what you feel when you recall it, shaped by what you have learned in between. You never remember the original. But maybe that means every memory is also a quiet chance to remember it differently. Tonight, something will happen that you will not remember next year, and something you have already forgotten was once everything.